All right, well, here we are together to talk about Freeman Vines hanging tree guitars. I'm glad that I can be a part of this. I'm Will Boone. I'm a professor of music at NC State University. I've gotten to collaborate on this project a little bit, and we're here with Freeman Vines, who is the reason why we're here. He's got the exhibit, Freeman Vines Hanging Tree Guitars, open at the Greenville Museum of Art right now. And we also got Tim Duffy, who's the founder of the Music Maker Relief Foundation, who's a renowned photographer and took many of the photographs that show up in the Hanging Tree Guitars book. And also Zoe Van Buren, who is a folklorist and the director of the Folk Life Director at the North Carolina Arts Council. And we thought we would get things going by having Zoe do a reading from the Hanging Tree Guitars book. So if you're ready for that, Zoe, you can take it away.
Sure, thank you, Will. Hey everyone, hey Freeman, hey Tim.
Hey,
yeah, I'm just gonna read from a little bit into the book, so this action kind of picks up in the middle, but I think that this passage really, I think, kind of touches on a lot of what goes on in the book. So there's also some shifting of voices, so I'll just say the name of whoever is speaking when I transition to who I'm quoting. During the many visits that followed that first day, Vines painted a picture of his hard upbringing, the enduring rules of the plantation in Jim Crow, North Carolina, the replication of the plantation in the penitentiary, the delicate navigating of race and class that shapes each waking day. He spoke about places on the landscape where bad things had happened before his time and during his own youth growing up in neighboring Greene County. Greene County had been a bad place in Vines's memory, a place he had not returned to in 10 years, and that had taken on almost mythical proportions, the land itself synonymous with what happened on it. Freeman Vines knew a secret landscape of eastern North Carolina, made of outlines of plantations and locations of cemeteries. He knew legends of the land, a place called Browntown, where a plantation owner had once attempted to create his own race by having children with light-skinned enslaved women and building his own town in which to keep them. Absences, too, creeks and wells that once ran clean, so polluted now that even the animals kept away. The missing grave sites of the thousands of enslaved Black men and women who drove the engine of the plantation economy and lived and died on the land for generations. Vines questioned the silences and the absences. Freeman, where in the world did they bury the slaves? Nobody will talk about it. The guitars belonged to that secret landscape. They were alive with their past purposes. The vibrations from the weight of the foot that trod on the front step of the tobacco barn, the slobber of the mule that drank from the wooden trough, the resonating notes in the piano soundboard that came closer than any other to making a guitar that could play that tone. Vines began to make new guitars again in the years after meeting Duffy, but they came slowly. His guitars required wood that inspires. Fine mahogany in the steps of a tobacco barn could have equal value in his hands. He abandoned even the highest quality of wood if it failed to speak to him. Fearing theft and feeling burdened by their quantity, Vines told Duffy to store the guitars in his Hillsborough studio. The guitars were still not for sale. Vines had turned away many aspiring collectors and guitarists who dropped by to play on his porch, poorly in his estimation, and make offers. Instead, Duffy and Vines discussed creating an exhibit from the collection to keep the body of work whole. With every visit, Vines sent Duffy back with more guitars. As they had filled Vines's workshop, they filled Duffy's studio. Surrounded by the guitars, Duffy experimented with photographing them with his large format camera, lighting and framing them like portraits of people. The earliest series of these images were homages to Walker Evans's brightly lit catalog photography of African art for the Museum of Modern Art. Duffy shot the guitars repeatedly to harness the serendipitous and dramatic play of light, wood, and emulsion that could translate his own emotional response to his relationship with Vines into images. Timothy. When I started sitting with Freeman, I spent weeks and weeks trying to take pictures of these things. I had to spend a lot of time just looking at them for about 6 months, just looking at them. When I'm photographing, I'm trying to make a real three-dimensional image. Freeman. Why am I making all these guitars? Well, they kind of make me happy, to tell you the truth. Every time I say don't mess around no more, I find myself still doing it. Everybody needs something to do. Have you ever been in a form of meditation where you just think and you're comfortable? That's how you feel when you work on it. You go to another phase, you feel really good about yourself. You make mistakes, you make yourself correct. I don't know how to explain it. It's just an area I'm comfortable with. It makes you feel really good about yourself.
All right. Thanks, Zoe. Thanks for,
Thank you,
for
Zoe.
reading that. And everyone that watches this should get that book. It's a beautiful book, beautiful photographs, amazing work of Freeman's that's in there, and incredibly written. Freeman, I wonder, Zoe finished talking with that idea where you were talking about being in a meditation state, where you were just flowing with the work that you were doing. Can you talk some about that feeling that you have when you're working?
Yeah, well, we call it a meditation state, but it's a feeling that, yeah, it seems like the wood talking to you. You can feel the wood, and it's doing things to you. It might be a state of going nuts. I don't know, but it's a strange feeling that's hard to explain. The meditation comes with when you ain't thinking about nothing but what you're doing and get carried away. Folks can be standing right there looking at you. You won't even know they're there.
Is that something that you can sort of will to come on? Can you just go to that place when you want to, or?
I reckon I just get carried away messing with the wood. It has to be the type of wood and what I'm trying to do, and a whole lot of things like that. I mean, it has something to do with the mind.
Mm-hmm.
As the root doctor told me, that it might be that I'm using the sucking side of my brain, because he said that people normally don't use but one side. I don't know about that.
So did you experience some of that when you were working with the hanging tree wood? Did you feel
Man,
like
that's an experience. I tell you, nobody ain't don't believe it. There's something strange about that wood. I had to quit messing with it at night, because sanding it with your hand, it'll start off with a sound. Then it develops a tempo. Then it seemed like something else having a little hollow sound here and there. I said, I ain't messing with this daggone wood no more at night. So I did it that day, and I found out I got comfortable then with the wood cutting up. And I experimented with other woods making the same sound, but it didn't. But I found out what it is. Mr. Skinner told me it was just a vibration of the wood. So they're gone, and I ain't sanding no more, so it really ain't important now. You know about the being skied.
Yeah. So another thing that was in the reading, Tim, was sort of talking about you photographing these works, and it talks about that some in the book. You say it's beyond a pre-visualization state that you had to get to. It's pre-spiritualization. You said, how am I even going to show this to myself? It sounded like you really had to work out your relationship to this material while you were photographing it. Can you talk about doing that some?
Maybe it's something rubbing off for Freeman. I never really worked on just objects, but I got obsessive for 5 years. I was going down, not obsessed, well, kind of. I was driving 2.5 hours each way back and forth once or twice a week for good 4 or 5 years, bringing everybody I could. And Freeman would say something, and then he'd be making a piece of wood, and I'm slow, but maybe a month later, some kind of image would come to my mind, what I wanted to create. And then I couldn't create it. That's pre-visualization. And then pre-spiritualization, I'm not like Freeman, but when you do wet plate, it's a handmade process. It's not a digital camera. You have to pour a plate. The chemicals have to be all right. If it's really hot, they get hard to work with, and you have to develop it and fix it. And there's 10,000 things that can go wrong at any point. And sometimes I would wake up in the morning. The whole start of the book was a picture of a tobacco field that Zoe and I took to an editor at UNC to show. And I woke up that morning and I saw the mist, and I went up and set up the camera, and in one shot had this beautiful picture of tobacco, and the tobacco didn't look like, it looked like spirits or ancient souls, but I achieved something really special. And I don't know how I did it, but it was just there. And with that one photograph, I knew I had a body of work in the beginning of a book. And that was the beginning.
Interesting.
If that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I think it sort of brings out this connection that that you've talked about. You feel this connection to Eastern North Carolina. You're not from here, but you feel like there's something really special about this place. And Freeman, I was wondering if you could talk about maybe growing up in Eastern North Carolina some. You know, the book talks a lot about the negative aspects of this. You know, it was Jim Crow era. The KKK was thick around there. But I wonder if that you could, if there's some positive aspects, some things that you like about living in the country that you could talk about.
Well, I don't know whether I like it or not, but there used to be an old white dude walked around in the 50s, the late 40s, about 48 and 49, and up in the 50s. He toted the shotgun and fishing pole. They said he was nuts. And he started whistling and waving his hand and wanted me to do it. I did it a couple of times, and Mom told me, she said, boy, I said, let me go ahead and kill yourself for the white folks. Every time he'd come by that, toting a shotgun or either fish pole, Mom, she just whoop, whoop, whoop. Then one day she got kind of slack up on it, and he went in the old house down there where him and his sister had moved down, and got his old guitar. I had never even seen a guitar up close. He just played and played. I said, let me play with you. No, ain't time yet. Then here where the positive stuff come in at. He by and by showed me a lick or two, but he wouldn't let you play nothing but Wildwood Flower. And then on top of that, you had to call the guitar Mr. Martin. So the deal was playing the Wildwood Flower for a while. He made a fool out of it. But here's the positive part. Kevin went back crying. Mr. Oscar, they laughed. He said, don't worry about it. Play Wildwood Flower. Play Wildwood Flower. So everything I played then and now is a version of Wildwood Flower, slowed down, speeded up, and then cha-cha beat and everything, because them were the only licks I learned. And later on, I did a little something, I had to be punished and come back. This is the positive part. When I come back looking for him, he had died, and I didn't think I liked him. But dadgum, that didn't bother me for quite a while. He was dead. J.O.D. Never know what happened to Mr. Martin. Some folks claim it would have been a gold mine if somebody had, well, somebody got it, you know the deed. An old Martin guitar.
Uh-huh. And so that's what you learned on?
Yeah, what I did, what I learned, you know, about then here come the blues and stuff, and I was listening at them folks, the hot song I did was Stoop Down, Baby, Stoop Down and Let Your Daddy See. So what I done, I took the part of the Wildwood Flower, the bass part, and used that and squeezed the bottom string down there instead of the ding, ding, ding and everything. I put that to it, and the women's got the singing, the men's got the singing, and at this point, all I know was that I had a beat. But I kept right on messing with it, and I found out that the same chords that you play the Wildwood Flower with, you can put them with other stuff. And they thought I could play, but you know, they get drunk, everybody singing at one time, they don't know where you can play or not.
Uh-huh. So did that plant the seeds of getting interested in guitars, do you think, playing back then?
Yeah, I did. And I went to messing around with them. Wanted to create my own blues sound at first. But one night, one evening there when it was, I come out of my shop, I'm thinking now, the way my sister talking there, I'm thinking now I might have had a stroke. Because it felt just like I was the music. Trembling, shaking and everything, and that beat and the sound was so John Brown comfortable, felt like I could walk right in it, but I couldn't. And then that said that, I said, I know what it sounds like now. go way here and there buying guitar, trying to create that same sound, Sold a few too, but never ain't heard nothing else like it since. Nothing ain't sound like it. If I did, you talking about a happy count.
Mm-hmm. And so feeling that sound sort of set you on this path of trying to find it again, trying to build it.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Uh-huh.
But I was looking at TV one evening, and there were some folks up there, and they live a different place in the world, had experienced the same thing.
That same kind of sound.
The sound and the feeling, it's hard to explain. It's a feeling and a sound. Seems like you might be the note.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. All right. Well, going back to the Greene County thing, Tim, I was wondering, why do you think you feel such a connection to this area of the world? What is it about this that draws you into Eastern North Carolina so much?
Well, I've been running around North Carolina since 1981, and it's changed a lot. You know, over half of the population are people like me that are from outside of North Carolina, like probably Zoe and people like you. You and Freeman are real North Carolinians. But when you go to Eastern Carolina, I would say I'm in the minority. I would say 90 to 95% of those people are from Carolina, and they retain a lot of great talking and foodways and the church and the small town communities that everyone knows each other's name. And then there's a specialness that Zoe's hooked me into about the cultural memory or the memory of land. Maybe she can talk to you. You can feel the land. And then when you think about this swath of land was the colonial South, where the first white people came and enslaved the Indians and brought blacks. And this is where America was born. And people like Freeman, and his family, his mom knew their slave ancestry. And so it's not like the rest of America where you're foot free and just every generation's in a different town. These people are here and they've been there since 1700. And so when you talk to them, there's a richness of culture and a great sense of self, and they've collected old knowledge, and everyone thinks of the music is American music, and the Mississippi license plate says Mississippi, birthplace of American music. Well, that's just, they had a good promo campaign. Mississippi and Louisiana was a swamp and a wilderness when North Carolina was being built. And they learn about selling people down the river. That's when, King Cotton got big. They needed slaves. They brought people from here in awful sense and brought them down there. And they obviously must have brought what Mississippi and Louisiana has. Some of it came from here. And in Freeman's family, and a lot of these different families I'm finding, I'm an outsider, they retain old knowledge. And then when I got out of the car and saw Freeman's guitars, and they're not guitar, they are guitars, but they're really sculpture. And there's someone deeply thought about this. And every shape you'll see, Freeman must have studied West African masks or knew somebody. I don't know where he got this knowledge, but there are shapes that are definitely West African, like a blues sound. I can play you Blues of Light and Hopkins that sounds like it's from a part of Gambia. Freeman's shapes were you could see the Gambian mask, and I was like, this is hard to believe. I'm sitting here and seeing this in 2015, such ancient knowledge, and kept and then Freeman introduced me to his sisters, who have had a recording group, since 1958. That's older than the Rolling Stones, still playing. And they have a son that their groups play, and the nephews have their daughters, they have a group that play. And every once in a while, they all get together and they're all playing. And it's nothing about the ego, it's about community. And you get infatuated. I wish I was a Christian and brought up in this church, because I'd have a lot more fun. Because they're And then you learn from Freeman, there's a divided community, and you maybe from outside how they keep it all together and have such joy. And then you learn about the white community too. They're all friends of Freeman's too, and they all interact, and all the stereotypes that you're brought up north or outside are put on their heads, because all these people do really love and care for each other and have lived together since they were there. Even though there's some horrific things that happened, the base level is redemption and peace. That's my thought. That's what I see, and that's what I feel when I'm down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's talking about all this richness of culture. Zoe, can you talk about some of your experiences? So as Tim mentioned, you're not from North Carolina originally. Some of your experiences getting involved in Eastern North Carolina, especially exploring some of the ways, like Tim was talking about, the culture is written into the land, is written into the material culture of the area. Can you talk some about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, wow, Tim said it really well there, but you know, like Tim, I also come from outside the region originally, and North Carolina has a lot of places that I think really exist in like our national imagination. I mean, people have sort of a built-in understanding of what and where, you know, the Appalachian region is, and our coast, and in between is, you know, the coastal plain, which I think a lot of people just don't really, from outside North Carolina, don't really have sort of an understanding of. And when I first came here, that was one of the things that was really impressed upon me, that there was something very important and very deep happening in Eastern North Carolina. And part of that is the music, part of that is, you know, the church communities, part of that is the food. And I really kind of learned how to love that landscape, to kind of see it with a different pair of eyes, and to understand also just through, you know, personal relationships, to understand how to see the beauty of a swamp, and really kind of read that land in a different way. And, you know, Eastern North Carolina is probably one of the more sort of economically disadvantaged parts of our state, but like Tim was saying, the history there is deep and old, and there's a lot of different communities living right up next to each other. And you can't take these histories apart. You know, we have the majority of our state recognized tribes live out in that part of our state. There's an incredibly, you know, vibrant and historically rooted Black population. And a lot of these families are interconnected and have shared histories and complicated histories. And that's something, you know, I think Freeman really kind of clued us into also, is just the reality of those relationships that happen when people who seemingly are really different live shoulder to shoulder and have to kind of share space together. And I have just come to really, really love and be fascinated by Eastern North Carolina for that history, but also for the culture that's there now. There's a music heritage in Eastern North Carolina that, like Tim was saying, is just as important as, you know, these places that I think nationally we understand as like music wellsprings. You know, Eastern North Carolina had that too, like jazz, R&B, blues. Even, you know, we had jazz funerals in Wilson, but you don't really know about that. And all of these important artists come from North Carolina, and they often have to leave. And, you know, I've heard jazz musicians say, like, every good jazz saxophonist I ever met up in New York came from North Carolina. And so there's a real wealth of talent, of culture. A lot of that comes out of the church. A lot of it comes out of these family, you know, sort of folk life traditions. And I think it's just not well understood enough. And I think that landscape is not well understood enough. And even the food, I mean, the barbecue traditions, everything, like, it's all connected. Just the way the land is, the way it tastes. People talk about, like, there's a lot of sort of mixing of like food and flavor and the sort of cultural experience of the East too. So it was really just one of like the honors of my life to get to work with Tim and Freeman and learn more about that place, but also kind of see it through the eyes of an artist, through the eyes of two artists, really. yeah, it was just incredible.
Well, cool. Yeah. And, you know, talking about that living shoulder to shoulder, I think that connects back to Freeman's story about learning the guitar from Oscar Hopper, this white man that I believe you said your mom didn't want you hanging around him, but yet you kept, you know, you kept making that relationship happen and then learning to play guitar from him. Tim, were you showing the book there?
I was showing the book.
Okay.
Everyone get a book. And we sold out the first edition, so that's amazing. In 5 weeks, it's all done.
Oh yeah.
You see it?
Yeah. I see him there.
Anyone seeing them? I'll show.
Yeah, good page.
Guitar Freeman made.
Hey, that's
I'll give a plug for Zoe. Freeman and I were just bumbling around having a good time, but Zoe was working at Music Maker booking. And then we read something she wrote, and she came up with some genius ideas of how to put this book together. And this book wouldn't be here without Zoe and the schooling she got at UNC probably, about how to put the ethnopoetics together. You know, we had all these recordings of Freeman's words. Everyone would go down and talk, and Freeman would talk. And we knew it was brilliant. And my idea was just to do a picture book with a picture and nothing. And then Zoe had the idea of putting all these words together of like, I have read whole lot of myths about gurus, and he talks about Edgar Cayce, Madame Helena Blavatsky. I kind of went to the occult side because it seemed like it had an answer for every problem. And then those are kinds of things I think about, and I come up with this crazy picture like that. But those are things I was thinking about, but Zoe actually put it together and put it in a book form so people could understand it. I mean, everyone needs a producer. So we had a great producer and a genius there that put this all together. So it's almost like a book of 3 voices, you know, Zoe's voice interpreting us and stewarding us along. And Zoe actually matched the photos with the words. I couldn't figure out how to do that. She spent a lot of time and figuring that out, and they really pair together. And sometimes it's wonderful to have a folklorist or an anthropologist or a writer to work in how to put a story together, because you know these are all stories and we all tell them, but it's special when it can end up in a book and other people can appreciate them. And Zoe, I always will tell her, I wish she'd just become a famous writer and just write books, but she's dedicated to the South and helping lots of people, and I'm sure she'll do more books. But I am so proud. I just want to thank Freeman, and I thank Zoe for doing this.
Yes, yes. Round of applause.
We haven't had a chance to do that, but Freeman and I were talking about that. We wanted to thank you, Zoe.
Well, I'm good and embarrassed now, but it was really, I mean, just to kind of respond to that too, the thing about this book is exactly what Tim said. It's 3 voices, and I really wanted to lean into that fact and really embrace the fact that this is a story of a lot of different kinds of artists influencing each other. And it's not just a story about Freeman or just a story about Tim, and it's not just sort of me interpreting it that, but it's about how those 3 voices interact and kind of feed each other. And the outcome of that book is really, I think would not have been possible without that sort of snowballing effect of influence, because none of us ended up in the same place that we started at, for sure. I mean, wow. Freeman's work looked different, Tim's work looked different, my writing looked different. I mean, we were all changed by it. And I think that was a really exciting thing to explore, like to really embrace that relationship of influencing each other creatively.
Yeah, I think it works really, really well. I was flabbergasted when I first saw the book, just how well the Freeman's voice works with Tim's photographs, with the way that you tie all the threads together. I thought it really told the story well. Freeman, there's something that she brings up several times in the book about how people came to you wanting to buy your guitars, but you didn't sell them. And I always wonder about that. What made you decide that these were not for sale? Not for sale?
Well, the deal was actually I wanted them to go. So Tim came by one day and said, well, he said, I came with me. And if you trust me, and talking about this, and I forgot the exact word, but I told him, I said, yeah, get him the camera on with you. Came right on with you. And seemed like he took him a long time to load them. I said, dang, I said, he take him a while. When is he going to get them all? So he got him and carried him on with him. Later on, he came back and we bumped heads. That's why I didn't sell them, see. At first, I didn't sell them because the folks didn't come with the right attitude. Mm-hmm. But then Tim carried them away from there. And then folks caught on to the music maker stuff, and every once in a while they tried to buy one, see, but it was too late. Mm-hmm. It was too late then because Tim was in charge, and I didn't want that said, Tim, how about bringing a couple of them guitars down? Man, a guy in a restaurant because I was through with it. In the little barn I was in, already falling down over stuff. Yeah, he carried them and did exactly what he said he was going to do and kept his word 100, well, more than 100%. Mm-hmm. More than 100%. Nobody ain't never done that before unless there was a crook. Crooks will keep their word 2 ways, pagan and king.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Tim kept his word 2 ways. And Ms. Van Buren now, everybody thinks she speaks with an accent. I told him, I said, she don't speak with an accent. Yeah, but think about that last name she got. I said, might be the last name, but she does not speak with an accent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They see her name on that writing stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Van Buren is a name like folk from Transylvania or some kind of Sylvania guy.
Uh-huh. Well, maybe Zoe could tell us where it comes from.
That's a Dutch name.
That's what I do.
It's kind of boring though. It means from Buren, so it doesn't have a very exciting meaning.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. I sure would love to have a pair of them shoes to make me a guitar. And well, not the shoes, but the wood that they make their shoes at.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Strong tradition of woodworking there too.
And it does to make a shoe and comfortable enough to wear. Dag and double dag.
Speaking of shoes, Freeman, there's a interesting story about the hanging tree wood and the shoe that you make. Can you tell about that?
Well, there was a piece of wood down there. I'm gonna say it was about 2 inches wide and about 4 inches thick, and it had a big knot on it. On really didn't use it. Tim see that and come there one day talking about it and stuff. And when he left, I got my hammer and started beating on it. First piece fell out. I didn't pay that no mind. The next piece fell out. I said, dang. I saw that on top of the first piece come out, turned it at all angles. I said, that's a daggone shoe. So then I come to messing around, rubbing it and stuff and everything. And it was, the thing was looking like a shoe wasn't carved up there. All it was, I took things and scraped it and removed the dead debris off it and everything. I said, daggone, for ain't a shoe. So then I glued the top of the knot to the bottom of the knot and embellished it a little bit, and there it was. Mm-hmm. I ain't never thought about this shoe. But when the knot was oblong, like that right there. Mm-hmm. And when I beat it out, it came out looking like a shoe. At that time, it didn't matter. But the top part of the knot was kind of round like that right there and beat it out. And when it fell on top of the piece that the first piece that came out, that didn't look like a shoe. All I done was glued the top to the bottom, scraped and scratched it here and there, and there it was.
There it was.
And this was after Zoe had completed the manuscript of the book, and I think she had finished, and this thing just arrived unexpectedly at my office in a box. And I opened it up, and I called Zoe, and I said, wasn't this guy in one of the articles a cobbler or something? And I think Zoe found an article, and I know I didn't share it with Freeman, that he what was the story? He was a shoe shiner?
There was one really super, super brief mention, you know, because Freeman had just come through this, you know, this body of work with this hanging tree wood, and we had, we think, identified the name of the person who was lynched on that tree, and it's actually quite a well-documented case. And so we had found some, you know, some of the original sort of media coverage and sent it around to, you know, Freeman and Tim. And but there was one really, really brief line that said that Oliver Moore, the man who was murdered, would spend his winters as a shoe shiner in Rocky Mount, which is a city kind of nearby. And I think by that point, you know, in that journey of writing for Freeman and Tim, of making art out of this wood and this story, I mean, we've been really sort of sitting with the heaviness of it for a really long time. I think it was kind of spiritually exhausting, and
The photographs and the art were scary. You know.
I mean, it was macabre and difficult to sort of process, and but the work was so beautiful too, and I think that we just spent a lot of time sort of thinking about like death and violence, and out of nowhere Freeman sends this box to Tim, opens it up, and it's this perfect sort of old-fashioned shoe, and Tim calls in, he says, wasn't there something about a shoe and Oliver Moore? And I went back and found the original place where it was mentioned that he had worked as a shoe shine in the winters. And I think Tim called you up or something and asked if you remembered that being the case. And I think you hadn't noticed that before, and we'd barely noticed it. And it just felt it felt sort of like we'd finally finished. Like now we were really done. And here was this piece that was about life, and could kind of free us to sort of conclude the story. So it was
Oliver was with us. Like Freeman kept talking about the occult, and there's a second life, a spiritual life, parallel universe, and it almost felt like Star Trek. Like there was a parallel universe that popped it, and Oliver was kind of freer, because the other things that Freeman took pictures he carved were scary to look at. They were dark, and this felt like there was redemption or something, you know, at the end of the story. To me, it didn't feel as heavy.
Yes, it's an interesting story about Oliver Moore, and he worked as a shoe shiner, and then all of a sudden the shoe just comes out of the wood. Did you feel like that, Freeman? Like what Tim was just talking about, like Oliver Moore was somehow speaking through this wood, or his spirit or the voice was coming through?
Yeah, because the deal was, when I see this shoe and everything, and it hadn't done nothing to it now, but set it on top of each other. I hadn't glued the two pieces together with 2 knots, but I had to get it away from there fast. So that's how I come sending it on to Tim. I glued it, cleaned it up, scratched out all the little knots and stuff like that right there. I scraped it some too, but it ain't been a whittle. It came out the block of wood. I hate somebody stole it. Because the shape of it was still in the wood, but I left it on the porch and kind of started hanging out here, and Dad won't going home, sitting to the stove drinking sodas and coffee. And folks just wanted to help themselves.
Mm-hmm. What about some of the other imagery that came out of that wood? There's a lot of it, like Zoe was saying, it's kind of hard to look at because it's dark. You've got a lot of skulls, snakes.
Right.
Was that stuff just appearing? Was that something you consciously thought of, or was it? Can you talk about bringing those images out?
Well, what I have on the snake deal was somehow or another, if I saw something in there, the next thing I started thinking about was it just subconscious. I read about the occult and the snakes. Some people worship snakes, and there's a church down in South Carolina. I seen them when me and David and Yvonne rode down there. I seen them take a rattlesnakes and put their head in their mouth, and they didn't bite them. But
Yeesh.
I found out that they were, let's see now, the white witchcraft and black witchcraft. But the quicker I got out in there, and I started seeing all this stuff, which I don't tell a whole lot of them talking about, don't believe it. The quicker I got out in there, the better off I would. But the snakes, I don't know why they would come up on some of the stuff. But now the skulls and everything, all it was a knot in the plank. That's what it was. And you could take a wire brush and brush it off and kind of put some clear on it so you could see the features and stuff, all been the same thing. Wasn't no whittling in the car. All in it was there.
Mm-hmm. It's so fascinating that so much of that was already there, it seems.
Already there.
Uh-huh.
Just a matter of seeing it and feeling it and hard.
Even my
I think that's what makes Freeman, you know, to me, Freeman, you're just like the consummate artist, because the way that Freeman works is all about attunement and getting kind of on a different plane where you can notice and sense and hear things, I think, that everyday people sort of overlook. And that's how we learn so much about the land and the history of the wood and the stories and their past lives, and all of it comes together. And that was a big part of why we felt it was so important to kind of pair language and images, because the stories themselves and that knowledge and that process is like part of the art too. And I mean, just getting to kind of sit and listen to Freeman talking about that process of making is like a real art experience. So we wanted to make sure that was all in there. And I think that's why, you know, that's kind of what I see between Freeman and Tim too. I see that commonality, because that's how Tim has to work too, with the wet plate collodion and the, you know, the pre-spiritualization he was talking about. It's like you have to be attuned to the moisture in the air and the the time of year and whether or not there's like salt in the environment, or I don't, you know, you have to be sensitive, sort of sensitized to the world on this really heightened level. And that's how Freeman works too. It's just like heightened sensitivity to the world.
Seems to connect back to that first reading that you did, where he's talking about being in a meditation state, and you're just flowing. And if the material wants to be a shoe, then it's going to be a shoe. You're not trying to force something that it's not, but you're just entering into a connection with the material.
You got it there. I tell you, you hit it right on the head. Cause this sugar maple way Tim got from Sam, I was around here messing with it one day. Then I had to go, driven, to get some pens and color this John Brown thing where we're in the piece of wood. And when I got through with it, the kind lady who do the Zoom stuff here and everything looked at it. She took a telephone, held it up. She said, "Here it is right here." Said, "It's a mandrake." I said, "Daggone. How in the world did them trees way up there know anything about a mandrake root?" And it grew way can't think of the name on them now, but they got real popular. Folks about harvest all on them. It's real popular in Japan. It's I can't think of what it is, but it turned out that place where I kept messing with it, everything turned into a perfect image of a mandrake root. And I ain't never seen them.
It's fascinating.
All I did was follow the lines, the heavy lines and the light lines and everything. I kind of embellished it a little bit with this and that right there. I said to myself, I said, "Now, dang, a mandrake root. Have heard of them. Heard of mandrake roots and High John the Conquerors and stuff, but had never seen them." Mm-hmm. And in there, she had it right on her telephone, almost the same color. Similar, one was just like the other. And that was strange. I did all that in one night and another day. And then I took and got my mind back together and everything. Ain't no way in the world I could have done it. It was the shape of the grain in the wood. The grain would look like the wood had been injured, but I had to make outline it so I could see what it was, and there it was. Just as perfect as the day long. called mandrake. In the days of superstition, it was worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because it was shaped like a man.
That's interesting. It's fascinating. It makes you just think about how connected everything is.
You sure right about
All
that.
these levels of connection that we're not really attuned to most of the time, but there they are. They show themselves.
Definitely do that. A whole lot of stuff will show itself if a person will take time and look at it, but they don't take time and look.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that might be a good thing to transition into speaking of taking time and looking. I was just wondering, this would be a question for each of you to answer. Maybe I guess we could start with you, Zoe. What do you hope people will take out of this exhibit, the exhibit or the book? You know, what do you hope they'll take away from it?
I think kind of like what Freeman was saying about learning how to look, learning how to see. You know, I hope that people will leave this work with the willingness to kind of come to whatever they experience with different eyes. You know, I think there's a lot of truth in Freeman's work and in Freeman's stories, and truth that I think sometimes people don't really recognize or don't want to hear. And there's also, you know, in Tim's photography, it was all about trying to sort of shift people's expectations when they look at this object and all they see is guitar. And a lot of the sort of role of the photography in this work is to like interrupt that, you know, oh, I'm just looking at a guitar kind of thought process, to think, what else am I looking at? Like, what else is here? Am I looking at form? Am I looking at texture? Am I looking at the wear and the sort of patina and the age of the thing and the story in it? And so I think the whole experience of, you know, of working with Tim and Freeman was a lot just about like learning to see with different eyes. And so I hope that people will take some of that away and, you know, look at their own world with it, like look at their landscape, look at places where there might be very, you know, unspoken histories or things that have sort of fallen between the cracks of history and are only passed on in oral tradition, or only live in a kind of informal world, and you can still see them if you're attuned to it and if you pay attention.
Yeah. And what about you, Tim? What do you think? What would you like people to take away?
Everyone get to know their neighbors, you know, and if you see someone had a different experience than you that are interested, if you just follow one thing, like Freeman and his guitars, it took me on such a journey I think it was cathartic. You have to ask Freeman, but he was in a lot of pain. Maybe I was too, with what I was going through with my family, but we looked at some really painful stuff, and I got to understand. I'll never understand what it is, what racial terror is, like Freeman, to live it, or to hear the stories of what this poor man went through, and somehow get sucked up in this guy's life and try to understand it, and then to come to the book doesn't beat you down. It's just like a conversation that I had a vision of, and thankfully Zoe captured it, and Freeman and I talked it, and Freeman, we learned about this artist. And the one thing that gets me is I just got out of the car one day 6 years ago and took a hard left turn, and I haven't really come back. And how many other people could meet somebody else and take that turn? You know, everyone could have this experience. It's not special to me. It's just, you have to take the opportunity to go somewhere else and visit someone and have an experience. You know, we're all blocked up. If we don't learn how to hold each other's hands and learn from each other, you know, we're not going to be a better world. You know, the world is our campus, and you have to, and you can find peace through educating yourself. And that's been my experience. And plus it's fun, you know, and it's fun. And it's fun to have a group like, this is like that these people came together. And I'm still, you know, just for the audience there, Freeman, after this period, he turned to me and said, I left to find myself 20 years ago. And when the book came out, he's looking at the book, I think I want to return to my old self. And he spent a lot of time. I watched him reach out to all his family. And we spent 6 months, and we found a building. And the Black Mayor, Shirley Mitchell, sold us a building very cheap in downtown Fountain, probably owned by one of the people that lynched these guys. And Freeman now maintains that storefront and works there and has a key so he can lock his door so that people don't steal his stuff. And we came to a different place, and we're still exploring where that is. It's been a lot of fun. I had no idea we'd make it this far. Did you, Freeman? It's just amazing. And so when you get the book, you just feel it's designed the way Zoe wrote it. You can read it all in about an hour and a half, or you can just leave it down and pick up one phrase. And like Freeman starts the book off, a person has to have a purpose to live. Like, that's the only thing, if you're a parent, that you want your children to understand. Mm-hmm. And if they can grasp that, you've succeeded as a parent. And so just having that to reinforce your kids around the table, to me, it's a great self-help book in a lot of ways. So I'm proud. Thank you, Zoe, for being our producer, and Freeman for being our artist.
Yeah, and what about you, Freeman? What do you hope people that come see the exhibit or look at the book, what do you hope they'll take away from it?
Well, I already experienced what folks take away. What happened was, one day an old preacher come up in, and diabetes was taking a toll on me, so I sicked him on Tim, and when Tim got through with him, the John Brown Scholar went out here sniffing like he had a cold. A heavy dude, man. I said, no, man ain't heavy. I said, he just told you what you wanted to know. I tell you, a heavy dude. He went on by that business then. See, he thought I was going to be a fool with a third grade education and sat there and try to explain to him what the deal was. And I'm already under pressure from up and down glucose level. But when Tim got through with him, that's on what he done to that scoundrel, but that scoundrel was ready to point a crime. And they ain't been but a few days ago. And that just tell you how I feel about what the book will do to you. It's done some things to me, and the Ms. Van Buren and Tim and everything, they put a lot of time in it and really done a good job. Ain't no way for me to claim I done that good job. I know that Mac see Muff run and Muff see Mac run and that stuff like that, but other than that, it's over when it comes to education. So they did the work. And the other day, Tim done the work too, but I could have patted Tim on the shoulder. Old preacher come down here slick. He went out here sniffing, and that was good to me. I don't know what Tim told him now. I told him, I said, you got to talk to Tim about I would have tried to explain it to him, but by me going up and down like I would have got confused and I didn't want to make a clown out of myself. So Tim explained it to him, and he went away a different man. He should.
Well, I'll say that, Freeman. You're educated in a way a lot of people in this world are not.
Well, see,
you got something we don't have in a lot of ways, and it's very.
When I look back at an education when 3 years going to school, and Mom told me one day she was out there planting music. My daddy, he I won't say how he was, but more out there playing. She told me, she said, boy, say you got to learn how to play. So you don't need no education. She said, whoa, and get up. And she meant what she said. So did. They were old before she could go to school because she had to keep the smaller children. I was so ashamed of one out there in the daggone field playing with a dress on. And the boys, they just laughed at me, laughed. Oh man, he come in with his hair slicked back every now and then and everything. I think that's where the children were coming from.
But now you got this book. People are reading your words all over the world, checking out your work. It's reaching a big audience. All right. Well, I think we've reached an hour. I think that's the time we're allotted here. So I want to thank Freeman, especially thanks for sharing your time, Freeman, your time, your thoughts. Tim, thank you, and Zoe, thank you. It's been great. I enjoyed talking to all of y'all, and hopefully we'll get to do it again sometime.
Thank you, Will. And everyone go to exhibit.hangingtreeguitars and read Will's writings. He wrote some wonderful essays on Freeman's virtual website. If you can't go to the website, go exhibit.hangingtreeguitars. And thank you, Will, for all the, he's our humanities scholar for the National Endowment for the Humanities, and really propped up the work. And when you go to the exhibit, you'll see Will's words on all these different subjects that really give some substance and in place what Freeman's art is. It's really an extraordinary thing. I'm so proud to be with you guys, and thank you for helping Freeman and helping the music makers and helping the world try to understand what we're going through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm mighty tickled to see y'all, and I'm mighty tickled that have